Alrighty, party peeps of the interwebs, it's time for your daily dose of the update. And if you hear noise in the background, it's because the house has been overtaken with children, because it's summer break here in Florida, and the house has been overtaken with children. Hunter Biden's trial week 1 has concluded, with the prosecution resting its case or ending its evidence and the defense beginning to present their evidence. This is Hunter Biden's 3 felony charges as relates to procuring a firearm, the 3 felony charges, 1 for lying on the gun application form by saying he's not a drug addict and he has never been addicted to drugs and he's not currently using illegal drugs, including marijuana. The second was for submitting the falsely filled out form to the gun dealer. And the third was for being in possession of a firearm unlawfully for 11 days when he knew or ought to have known he was a drug addict, yada, yada, yada. The evidence by any objective metric should have Hunter Biden dead to rights, but it seems that the defense is going to call as a witness the gun shop owner or one of the employees to testify to the fact that they accepted his gun application even though he didn't fill out the proper address. And I think they're going to try to throw the gun shop under the bus by saying they should not have accepted his firearm application, so it's their fault that they sold a firearm to Hunter Biden, above and beyond the semantic arguments that they're going to raise that Hunter didn't really consider himself an addict, so when he didn't say yes in that box, it's because he didn't consider himself an addict. And was he using at that very moment? Not really. They had Hunter Biden's daughter testify today as, I believe, the first defense witness, and she was saying how Hunter was doing better. He had gone to rehab and he was in recovery and doing much better in the weeks leading up to the procurement of the firearm, as if to suggest that he didn't break the law in the manner in which he filled out that form because he had gone to rehab and he was getting better, therefore not lying or not knowingly lying when he filled out that form, except for the fact that they also went through the text messages with the daughter. They went through Hunter Biden's text messages. They played Hunter Biden reading his own memoirs in which he talks about hardcore drug use, addiction, battling addiction, all the problems that it was causing as at the time he had filled out that form. So in any normal realm of the universe, this is a foregone conclusion of a conviction, but I'm going to go out on a limb and predict now and before it happens that it's not only going to be a hung jury, it's going to be an acquittal. And we're starting to see some of the groundwork being laid for that. There was an article in Politico, and I kid you not, this is the headline of the article. Politico, the Hunter Biden case is solid. There's something rotten about it too. The president's son faces long odds to avoid conviction in a case with dubious origins? Wilmington, Delaware. The line between criminal prosecution and public flogging was hard to detect this week when federal prosecutors began their case against Hunter Biden for allegedly buying a gun in 2018 while addicted to drugs. Over the course of more than an hour on Tuesday morning, Justice Department prosecutor Derek Hines played clip after clip of the president's son reading from the audiobook of his memoir, which describes in raw and evocative terms his years-long struggle with drug addiction. Now, there's a concept called persuasion, which you give information hoping to induce the decision-making of the person. I think I'm describing it properly. There's also laying the groundwork or laying the brickwork or planting the seeds for what you want to come. There's also potentially guiding the jury in terms of how they can come to the conclusion they want to by feeding them that information and that strategy beforehand. So it's one thing that you have a Politico article that seems to be getting the public ready for the idea, getting ready for the outcome, that Hunter Biden somehow get acquitted or there's a hung jury and it's not that big of a deal because there's dubious origins to this prosecution. My butt. The only thing dubious about this is that Hunter Biden is not also facing tax charges because that might implicate the big guy. So they went with the only thing they can possibly go with that might result in a conviction, in which case he might get pardoned by his own father, although his father has come out and said he's not going to pardon Hunter Biden, which adds to my suspicion that Hunter is somehow going to get acquitted in all of this. But I'm going to get to the punchline for that at the end of this. The interesting thing is who wrote this article? What are their credentials? Let's see, shall we? Ankush Kardori is a senior writer for Politico magazine and a former federal prosecutor at the Department of Justice, where he specialized in financial fraud and white-collar crime. He has also worked in the private sector on complex commercial litigation and white-collar corporate defense. His column, Rules of Law, offers an unvarnished look at national legal affairs and the political dimensions of the law at a moment when the two are inextricably linked. Persuasion, laying the groundwork, getting the general public ready for the notion that Hunter Biden might not be found guilty. And how might the jury arrive at this conclusion? Well, just take ACQUITTED's advice. Biden's defense has little to work with after the presiding judge rejected a variety of long-shot defenses in the run-up to the trial. They have essentially been left with one key argument, that Biden did not, quote, knowingly, end quote, make any misrepresentations when purchasing the gun because he may have thought he was clean at the time. But on its face, it is not a compelling argument. At the end of his opening statement, Biden's lead counsel, Abby Lowell, stressed to the jury that Biden is entitled to a presumption of innocence and that the prosecution has a heavy burden of proof, which is true enough, but registered in that moment at the courthouse as a concession that the evidence is not on their side. And then later in the article, the author writes as follows. Although Biden is probably going to lose the trial in Delaware, that is not necessarily a foregone conclusion. A unanimous verdict is required to convict, and if someone on the jury strongly sympathizes with the president's son and rejects this dubious prosecutorial effort, it would cause a mistrial. After all, the evidentiary architecture of the case is awkward, if not outright distasteful and unseemly. If I had been asked to prosecute a case against a former drug addict using his memoir of recovery as the centerpiece of the case, I do not think I would have been able to bring myself to do it. That's particularly true because it is far from clear that the conviction of Biden, to say nothing of a potential prison sentence, would serve any meaningful purpose. Do you know what we're reading right now? We are reading the words of a former federal prosecutor basically telling a jury that I strongly suspect he knows is reading this article exactly what they need to do, what mental gymnastics they need to run through in order to acquit or not convict Hunter Biden, and he's laying it out for them. This is all you have to do. It's so unseemly. It's so unfair. What good would convicting him do, let alone a prison sentence? So you can basically say, convince yourselves, well, he didn't knowingly lie on that form because he thought he had recovered. He didn't think he was an addict, and by golly, he wasn't using at the time that he filled out that form, although by the evidence it seems that he might very well have been on drugs at the time he filled out that form. So we are reading the words of a formal federal prosecutor basically saying, yeah, the evidence looks bad, but if enough people on the jury, or at least one person on the jury, sympathizes with the defendant, Hunter Biden, well, then he'll get a hung jury and a mistrial. And he's also basically saying that as a federal prosecutor, he would have never taken the case in the first place. So if anybody on the jury happens to be reading this article, well, what conclusions would you draw from that? But it's absolutely outrageous. That's not the reason for which I'm predicting an acquittal, not a mistrial, but an acquittal. There was another tweet that I saw earlier today, something to the effect that Jill Biden has now showed up for every day but one of this trial, flying from Normandy to attend the trial so that she could support her son. And I said, that is not supporting her son. That is intimidating the jury. From Ryan Nobles, Capitol Hill correspondent at NBC News, knew she was just in France yesterday, but First Lady Jill Biden has returned to support Hunter for day 5 of his criminal gun trial. So far, she has only missed one day of the trial, and that was for the D-Day anniversary. She is expected to return to France tonight. Set aside the absolute insanity entitlement of this carbon footprint that Jill is leaving on the world, a world that is in an environmental crisis. Set aside all of that. She's flying from France back to Delaware, a wonderful jurisdiction for this charge, by the way. She's flying from France to Delaware, back to France again. She only missed one day. That was to attend the D-Day anniversary in Normandy, and she's flying right back to France. What do you think the jury thinks when they see Jill Biden, the First Lady, there every day attending court? Do you think they see a mother supporting her son? Or do you think they see someone sending a strong message to the jury as to what needs to be done? Jill Biden is right there in the courtroom, presumably looking at the jury, making eye contact with the jury, at the very least letting the jury know she is there. The wife of the President of these United States of America is right there letting the jury know, not that she's supporting her son, but that the President and the Department of Justice and the entire American corrupt regime that we know as the Biden regime is right there looking at them, letting them know what they need to do. At least that is my take on it. Viva Fry at the Viva Fry. Hunter's First Lady mother showing up every day to her son's trial is not supporting her Hunter. It is reminding the jury who they will answer to. It is jury intimidation. And I stand by that, and I stand by my unlikely prediction of an acquittal in this case. We are seeing ACQUITTED, the former federal prosecutor, laying out exactly what the jury needs to come to by way of mental gymnastics in order to acquit. You got Jill Biden there every day except for one, letting the jury know that she's watching. You got Joe Biden saying in advance he's not going to pardon his son Hunter, and I strongly suspect that's because he knows there will not be a conviction in this case because they know how to work a jury in a favorable, politically prejudiced jurisdiction, and that is it. That is where things stand in the Hunter Biden trial after week 1. The defense is going to call a bunch of witnesses. We'll see where it goes. They're going to pull on the heartstrings. They're going to make Hunter Biden look like a poor addict who went to rehab, who thought he was clean, who bought a gun because he needed to protect himself, and he didn't realize that he wasn't clean, or that he was filling out the form, knowingly, falsely filling out the form. They're going to play that. They're going to play that angle. They're going to argue that, and I have a strong, sneaking suspicion it's actually going to work. Stay tuned. If I am wrong in my prediction, feel free to drop a comment and let me know that I was wrong. But if you like what I do, you know what to do. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Make sure your notifications are turned on. When you see a video of mine pop up in your feed, give it a thumbs up if you're so inclined. Give it a thumbs down if you don't like it, and let me know why. And what else is there? Exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out. Booyah!
Your junkie son Hunter was begging his dead brother's wife and he got her addicted to crack. What do you have to say about that?
What was that?
Hunter, crack, cocaine, he's a degenerate. Is he ever going to change?
I don't think so. He's trying to work out a serious problem he has.
You're the worst father in the history of fathers. I hope you're proud of yourself, Joseph. Joseph, come back here. Joseph! Joseph!